Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Would you please stand to the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome a new commission member, Mr. Barry Garner. He's been on a few years back when we used to have refreshments at our meeting. That's when Ms. Jean Harmon used to bring cookies in for us. That goes back a little ways. So let the records reflect the members that's present. Mr. Myers is video. Little heads up, give me thumbs up for the votes, and whenever you need to make a comment, get my attention, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commission members should have received the draft minutes of October 30th, 2023. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Not hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes from October 30th as they are.
I'll second that.
Second by Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Gotcha, Mr. Myers. Mr. Garner is an alternate since Bill Hubrick is out. You get to vote tonight. And any part of our meeting, you're welcome to make comments or whatever, even when there's a full seating. So, welcome aboard anyway.
Welcome aboard.
First items on delegation and action items would be Pat Small, 11 Franklin Street, seeking concept site plan waiver. Daryl, just to start off, didn't we do something back earlier with this or not?
We did. I think in May, we granted Mr. Smalley site plan waiver for that project. What's changed that is that the cinder block building is going to repurpose the cinder block and redo the trusses. That was not a good fit for that project. So in working with the county, Mr. Smalls decided to tear that building down, reuse that footprint. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then make one large building. So getting rid of all the structures there entirely and just rebuilding the one new building.
The reason it's before us this evening is for the waiver.
Well, because of the change, I just wanted it to come back here. But it needed to come back here.
Just to make sure we're good.
Please mention your name and
Patrick Small, Taneytown, or 11 Franklin Street, Taneytown.
So in your packet is some information that Mr. Small has supplied. Mr. Small, it's in the same order that you gave it to me in, so if you want to comment that way.
Yeah, so basically on the first picture, I believe it's the same you have there. The thing that's encircled, if you can still see, it's hard to see it. The building in question was at the top left corner. It got to be an issue between rebuilding with that and talking to the county with the codes and everything. So we decided it'd be easier to just do one continuous building instead of trying to redo the trusses across there. I'm not a builder, so don't ask me a whole lot about it, but then we decided to keep the building back from the building to the right, the long building, for code issues, for fire issues.
okay.
Cutting back basically with the fire code states if it's so close, you have so much of a firewall for so many hours, blah, blah, blah. So if you stay back 25 feet plus whatever, there's a number that the county said. So that's the other reason too. So basically it's moving, just squaring it out basically.
Okay.
The second picture is what it would look like in respect to the existing structure there.
Okay, so.
The only-
6,020 square foot is the new building.
Correct, yes. And what I was last time was 5724 or 5750, what it was the last time, so it changed about 100 and some square feet or whatever it was, 200 square feet.
Okay. Any comments?
Well, I have a lot of comments about this, because, and I was, when this first came, when I first saw this, it was my first planning commission meeting. And, you know, I'm looking at this now, there is not enough information on these pieces of paper to tell me anything. I mean, there's a set of circled buildings, and several rectangles and one building marked with a square footage and an offset to another rectangle. There's nothing that shows setbacks from the streets.
We did that, we did the setbacks, excuse me one second, I'm sorry. So when Daryl, when he went to the permit after it was approved last time, they asked for the setbacks, and we submitted the contractor submitted the setbacks to the town. I don't have that with the existing thing I have, but we did submit that and got the permit to do that building then.
Let me just, how does this fit into chapter 101-5, which is the waiver, the request for a waiver, all these things? It seems like everything in that chapter is related to a site plan. So why wouldn't we want the site plan to give that information that Chris just mentioned? That would show the setbacks, the sidewalks, is there gonna be sidewalks?
So, a number of things on that. The senior center. This-
Senior center.
Yeah, the senior center, which is across from,
Yeah, across Anderson Street.
Yep.
yeah. So the setbacks for Mr. Small's lot, like the senior center, are not what they say in the code, because of, for what reason, it's before me, but, so Mr. Small's site is way before any code that's in our code book. That goes back, I don't know, 40s.
Right, like,
So.
It goes back before our time, but
In
that's,
the senior center, if you know, when we're looking at the setbacks for that, we have to look at the fact that they're not where they should be either. But one thing that the code does talk about is of matching what's in the area. So you don't have something, you know.
Well, I mean, what you just brought up is exactly my point here, which is that, yeah, this building dates back to the 1940s or whatever, but the point is that you're tearing that building down.
well, we're gonna keep the existing footer on that corner structure, yes.
But you're tearing the building down, and you are putting up a new building. You know, and don't get me wrong, I had to go through this process. It cost me $10,000, and I don't want to do that to you. But what I do have to have is a little bit more information, okay? And in terms of whether or not it meets the official setbacks of, if it matches what the county building is, that's fine. If you're gonna line it up with the county building, that's perfect. But we need to show that here, because the way this is drawn, you could put this building anywhere on the lot. And it could be any height, and it could be any construction. And there's just nothing here, you know, I don't know where the property lines are. And it doesn't have to be, you know, dead on nuts accurate, but a representation so we have an idea of where everything is. This isn't enough information to me, for us to be able to say that we can approve anything, because I just, you know, I don't even know what the third sheet is. You know, I assume that's your,
That was just
that's
basically
the
what the-
footprint of the, I assume that's the footprint of the building?
Yes.
All right, which is fine, and, you know, Is this a, is it a Morton building? Is it, Amish stick-built building? If it's a Morton metal building, it wouldn't hurt to include the cover sheet for it, you know what I mean? Because I know your builder has that. Just turn that in with this,
I have, that's what I'm looking for, actually, but it was from the old building, from the,
So, and I'm happy to meet with you and talk to you about it. But I can't agree to move forward on something like this without any kind of real information about what we're doing.
that's fine, but can we establish exactly that's what you're looking for? And if anyone else has any further questions that I can address for the next time when I do come back, so we can try and clarify, you understand what I'm saying?
And
Okay.
so if you want to read out what's on what are the requirements for a waiver?
Jim, did you look at it up?
So I think what we talked about last time was because a portion of the existing building was being preserved, that the threshold of disturbed area was going to be under 5,000 square feet. That's one of the criteria. So the code says the planning commission, with the concurrence of the zoning administrator, may waive requirements for site plan approval where no extensive construction or improvements are sought. Before acting upon any application for a waiver, the planning commission and zoning administrator shall consider whether the use will affect existing drainage, traffic, relationship of buildings to each other, landscaping, buffering, lighting, and other considerations of the site plan approval, and that the existing facilities do not require upgraded or additional site improvements. Then it talks about the requirement to post the property in advance, which was done in this case. That's pretty much the text on the waiver.
So,
And one of the triggers for a site plan is the construction of any new building or structure for a non-residential use. So anytime you're building a non-residential building, a site plan is triggered. But then where, it's not going to affect stormwater management or erosion and sediment control, things like that, you have the opportunity to grant a waiver of the process.
so back to your point, is without a site plan, it's not showing that there's going to be sidewalks or anything else put on the property. And I think that's something that we want, sidewalks.
There's sidewalks, you guys are putting sidewalks across the street there, but there is no room for a sidewalk. If that building stays exactly the way it is, there is no room for a sidewalk as it is. But that's,
Well, that would show up on the site plan.
And Pat, I guess, help me out.
sure.
So this is the section of building that you were going to try
That's-
to keep, correct?
That's the block structure, yes.
All right, so now that's coming down,
Correct.
all right? So what you're telling me is you're going to try to reuse part of that foundation. But you've got page 2 here, shows me a simple rectangle where this is a rectangle with a bump out, and this is almost dead on the street.
It's about 10 feet, or not quite 10 feet, yeah.
And it's hard, and
Hard with
it's
the picture.
hard.
I understand, it's hard with that picture.
But you see what I'm saying? I'm not,
understand.
like I said, I'm not, believe me, having been where you are and having had to do what I had to do, I'm not trying to do that to you, Pat, I really am not. But we do need to have a little bit more information. What I would like to see on a sketch like this, is, is it drawn to scale, what the scale is, what the distances are from the curbs to the building. Okay, so we get an idea of the exact location of the building and the building height. I think those things would be a minimum.
Yes,
That's fine,
and this should be something you should be able to get from your contractor.
that's fine.
Didn't
Yeah.
you say Conowago or somebody was?
I know, it was,
Okay.
actually, I had a builder, but I switched builder. In the
well,
process of
that's
switching a
fine.
builder right now,
That's fine.
And that happens.
many reasons,
Yeah,
but
no-
anyway, but yeah.
But, right, and so that's what I would like to see. If this is a metal building, state that it's a metal building of X height.
Right.
X number of square feet, distances off of the curbs this way and your distance off of this building, and then identify what each of these other buildings are.
That's fine.
Okay? Then that gives me enough information. And also, this area here, which obviously is parking lot, now that's all gravel right now, right?
Yeah, the whole property.
Is it broken up asphalt or gravel, or is it some of it's paved, some of it's not? That kind of, just identify it that way so we know what it is. So that if somebody comes back and says, well, why didn't you make them put stormwater management in? They're
That's
putting a
fine,
6,000 square foot building in. By rights, you should have to do stormwater management because but you're replacing what is more than that with something a little bit lesser, and since you're
Right.
replacing existing impervious with smaller impervious, then you can waive that part of it. But absent any of that other information, I just don't want somebody to come back to us and say,
No,
hey,
I understand.
why didn't we make this guy do that?
Okay,
Okay?
And we'd like to see a color rendering of what the building's gonna look like.
that's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I know the builder should have all that for you. And so just give us a copy.
That's fine. Yeah, because I'm in the process of switching, and
That's fine.
so that's what happens.
And like I said, I want you to understand, we're not opposed to what you're trying to do, and I don't want to stop you, and I don't want to make it cost a lot of money. We just need
Understand, that's fine.
enough record here to do what we need to do.
Sounds good.
And on your third page, you have like 10-foot sections. Is that gonna be like,
The doors.
Are
the
those
garage
bays?
doors.
Yeah, you're right, well, then they should
Yeah,
be,
for storage, yeah.
right, if those are roll-up doors, then,
Yep.
but you should have the floor plan from your building, and just turn that into it.
That's fine.
That way, that'll already have everything on it to scale, and you don't have to draw anything.
Fine.
so when you say storage, is that related to the signs that we see posted around town?
No, no.
Vehicle storage and all that stuff, is that something different?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with this.
Is this, that is a good question. So what is the use? Is it
We haven't considered, it's called Taneytown Auto Parts
warehouse?
Storage.
I mean, is it warehouse, or is it self-storage, or?
We sublease it out. I mean, that's what we do, so.
And that's, according to code, he can use that for storage as subleasing it out for storage, or?
That becomes the next question, is that an allowable use in that space?
Storage is not allowable use of that space. It is an restricted industrial, but not in general. The storage is for your support of your organization, Pat, only.
Okay. All right. All right, so you think you have enough?
Information. Yes. I can do that for next time.
And I'm sure if you bring something in to Daryl, the zone administrator, he
Yeah,
can
I'll
help
get-
you through it.
Beforehand, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Myers, you have any questions?
No, nothing additional. I'm good. Thanks.
All right. So at this point, there'll be no action taken by the commission.
That's fine. Next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for your cooperation.
Next item on the agenda, Barnett Ridge seeking concept site plan approval for a subdivision. Representative here, and Daryl, you want to lead us off?
So,
I think we have already given approval for a site plan earlier, didn't we? Didn't we already have site plan approval for this?
the goal tonight is they're seeking a concept site plan approval for a subdivision, whereas before it was a site plan. So like the Carroll Vista model where Carroll Vistians own their home, but not the land beneath it. This would be a fee simple scenario where each of the 50 dwellings out at Garner Ridge will be owned building and land by the individual.
Okay,
Marty, is that close?
Yes, it's
okay.
close.
Good.
I just
Go ahead and
couple-
state your name, and go ahead and give us the,
Marty Hackett with CLSI, consultant for the project. The plan was previously approved as a concept site plan because it is going to be an active adult retirement community. It still is. Instead of going through the condominium regime, a way of purchasing properties, buildings or whatever, the client would like to do it as a subdivision. So instead of being a site plan process, we would go through the subdivision process take the same layout, but put lot lines around it. So what that requires is, we did a lot detail, so all the lots will meet that detail, and that's approvable by the planning commission. And those would be the setbacks allowed, which we are within the setbacks. I didn't draw setbacks that we would end up having to come back and get waivers for or variances later. We made sure morning rooms, the additional morning rooms that could be purchased, decks and all that stuff will fall within the setbacks. It's only a way of putting lot lines around the building so people can purchase the lot they want to put their house on. The maintenance is still going to be the same as if it was Carol Vista, just like a condominium. Homeowners Association's going to own the roads, sidewalks, they'll maintain it, they own all the utilities. It's a private sewer system now. We're doing a private pump station, so the city won't take over that. They'll pay a maintenance fee and have a certified manager come in and maintain the small pump station that's required for the 50 units. So it's the same concept that was previously approved. We're just putting lot lines around it. So what we would do is the concept plan, if we can get it reapproved as a subdivision, we will be coming in next with a preliminary plan instead of a final site plan like we were previously. And then from the preliminary plan, after we come back in front of you guys and get approval of that, then we do the final drawings, and we would actually submit the record plats to record the lots.
Okay, so help me understand, if I buy a lot, do I have a choice of what type of home I'm gonna put on that lot?
What type of?
Home I'm gonna build on that lot if I buy the,
They're buying it from the builder with a specific model in mind.
okay,
So it's the same as the houses that we have proposed for this, they will buy those houses from that builder. He will build the house and basically so they're buying the house on the lot, but they'll get a deed to it.
okay,
They will be responsible to maintain the exterior of a house just like you normally would. Something happens to the roof and so on. So where a condo, if you do that, sometimes they maintain the outside, the siding. Sometimes they own the interior walls, that kind of thing. In this case, you're going to own the house on the lot. But there'll be restrictions and covenants in the bylaws and all that stuff of the homeowners association for the lawn will be mowed just like a condo. It's a quality of life. It's a retirement community. Therefore, snow removal will still occur just like a condominium, except it's through the subdivision process.
okay.
Is this under the community village overlay, or how does?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But there are no single families, there's no balance in that? Is that for, I'm not as versed on that as I should be in terms of,
Duplex or triplex,
yeah, and
Right.
whether there's supposed to be some kind of balance with single families, or,
No,
So
sir.
when this came in, when this came in, it's for 50 units, okay? And there were gonna be two and three section units. I'm losing the terminology, but
you duplexes or triplexes?
yeah.
But because these all have, they're, and I asked the question because we've gone around the tree, and again, I don't want to labor some of these things, but, we spent a lot of time working on the community village ordinance, but all of these homes are front-load garage, right? These all have garages?
That's correct.
They're all front-loaded garages, there's no alleys. And I think was there an exception carved out, Jim? Was there an exception carved out for where lots back up to there, where there's no back-to-back? I'm just trying to make sure that we're covered under.
Yeah, when we do a retirement community and it's 100% retirement community, there is no mix requirement.
Right.
You can have all attached units. We were doing a non-age restricted community. You have to have basically a 50% max on attached, and that helps.
Keep in mind, this is just a concept.
Right.
Yes.
Right, yeah, because there'd be boatloads of other questions otherwise.
I guess my other question is the 25-foot road or street through there? 24. Is it 24 foot?
24 feet of paving, 26.8 feet, I believe, from curb to curb.
Okay. That's, Mr. Myers, you have any comments on the,
Yeah, yeah, I have
now's a
quite
good time to
few
bring
here.
them out.
So if you're ready, I'll go down through my list here.
Go ahead, Dan,
and,
you're up.
Excuse me.
You know, some of them, you already talked about a few of them, but I'm going to hit them anyway. So the first question I had was whether this was actually still designated as a community village, which sounds like it is, even though we're reapplying. I guess we're still in the community village status here.
That's correct.
So then a couple of things that I think we're supposed to do as a planning commission is to make sure that it complies with our comprehensive plan. And so one of the questions I have for our council here is, does this layout support small town atmosphere? So I guess I'm not sure whether it does or not, but that's one of the questions that I have that I think we need to consider. The biggest reason I don't really think it does is because of the high density of the buildings and everything. So I have a little bit of a concern about that. And then the other thing that I think we're supposed to do as a council is we're supposed to kind of identify or consider how this is going to benefit the city of Taneytown and the current residents. So again, I guess I'll just need to be educated on how this is going to benefit the city of Taneytown and the current citizens. So that's two things that they're discussion points, nothing I'm expecting anybody to answer right now. And then again, we need to consider how this project is going to complement the current environment, and considering pedestrian traffic, which really there's nothing to walk to from here. You can walk around inside here, but you can't walk to anything. So the walkability that's cited in our comprehensive plan is not really something that we can really talk about with this. And I am interested in how we're going to interface with the main highway here. So I think there was a traffic study that was done before, but I'm not sure who did the traffic study or what the assumptions were relative to Sewell's, whether it's there or not, and how what assumptions it had for the I'll call it the Mountain Brook Boulevard that is that we're talking about. So as far as the traffic study goes, I'm not really sure. I don't know anything about that right now. So that's something I wouldn't mind hearing more about before we decide. Next item on my list was parking. So I guess I'm not sure if there's parking allowed on the street here. If there is parking on the street, then I think it's not adequate for emergency fire units to go in there. So our current ladder truck, if you have to drive in here and say you have a fire at one of the first couple buildings and you put out the outriggers, you're taking up 16 foot. So now 16 minus what do we say, 24?
26.
So now you can't get anything else by. So if anybody else if there's an ambulance call down at one of the other units, when you have a fire at one of the first units, basically you can't get down and take care of that. So the narrower streets, I have a problem with that. So then as far as the parking goes, so if you can't park on the street, then the distance from the house to the sidewalk is, I think it showed like 18 foot, which that seems kind of tight for me for a vehicle. And I guess we're allowed or we're required to have it's either 3 parking spots per unit or 1.5 for the townhomes. So again, I'm not sure about the parking, and I understand this is a concept plan, but I don't see anything that leads me to believe what's going on there. My next note I had down here was the public safety concern, which I kind of touched on already with the street width, but there's really only one way to enter in here. So I think I heard the last time this was presented, because it was only 50 homes, you only had to have one entrance, but I'm not comfortable with that either. So I know we're showing a emergency exit at the end, but I don't know if Souls is ever going to be there or ever going to happen. So I'm not sure if that's adequate for a second means of entry or egress. Um, and and I guess the one other thing that I noticed is that so with the here I'm trying to learn a little bit more. So with the community village, I know there's an adjustment that happens with the density. So you can, I think it's I forget what it was, 2.8 to up to 4 or something like that. So somehow this plan decided on 3.47, and I guess I'm not sure what the justification is that determines what that density is within a community village. So, and again, maybe that was already done. I don't understand how that's determined.
This R ten
And
thousand.
then,
I was just asking, is this R in the R 10,000?
I believe it's our 10,000.
So that's all right. So that covers that question.
well, no. So when it's designated as a community village, you're allowed to increase the density from the R10,000, and so it can go up as high as 4 or as low as 2.8, I think it was. So somewhere in between there, the way I read it is the Planning and Zoning Commission, they can conditionally raise the density over the 2.8. But I don't know if we did that in the past before I was on the board. So I just don't know what the justification was to be over the 2.8.
Would you like me to address it?
Yeah, won't you
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
I guess if we're going to address these comments, maybe we can just take them, because this situation, Mr. Myers, is one, I believe in the retirement communities, when it's a 100% retirement communities, actually those density tables don't apply. So it's more or less, if the planning commission likes the layout, whatever, they have the right to approve it. But nonetheless, we're less than the 4 anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. The density was actually, everything was actually a part of an annexation agreement that occurred years ago. And the 50 lots was determined, it's right in the annexation agreement to do it under the community village ordinance. The density was 50 lots. It was a much, like a rougher sketch that was associated with that whole annexation process, which is very similar to what we did, but we fine tuned it. So what the town saw back then is what they're seeing today. And the planning commission approved the concept with, and again, with the road widths, what we talked about, we were looking at parking on one side of the road, which still leaves you 16 feet or a little more, because we're actually at 26.8 feet from curb to curb, so there's still room apparatus. Second means of access are not really, it's 50 lots, that is the threshold for a second means. My client did agree to add the emergency access that'll eventually go through Souls, which we are currently working on as well, and that will be going through the process. But understand your concern. As far as compatibility and all that stuff, I think that the whole annexation agreement on what it allowed, the council approved the annexation agreement, they annexed the property in, is the same plan basically that we proposed here. And again, the only thing we're asking right now is to draw lot lines around these buildings to sell them a different way than you would a condominium type regime. A condominium is not a building, it's a way of selling real estate, conveying real estate. And my client would rather not. When you look at liability long-term with condominiums, they prefer to go to the subdivision route and have the people own the lot. So, and again, these will all have 2-car garages. There's a double wide parking pad on there, so you basically got room for 4 cars. And again, it's a retirement community with you know, you'll find if you look at retirement communities, and we did, and some of you that were on the planning commission back with Carol Vista, we actually set them 14 feet from the back of sidewalk, and that was to basically more or less push people to use their garage and not park in the driveway, much less the street. And if you go out there, there's not, I mean, for 400 and some houses, there's not a lot of cars in driveways or on the street. You're gonna have it. I'm not debating, I'm not saying that nobody's gonna do it, because they will. But it's not like a non-age restricted, you know, they will have visitors, you know, and I'm not saying they won't have parties, but it's something that I think, these are less impact. In this case, the streets are private, utilities are private. They don't get a reduction in their taxes, so they pay full taxes, and with no basic maintenance to the city. So, I mean, I think that they're normally good for the neighborhood. I don't think anybody really, you know, complains about retirement communities in their neighborhood. And so that's what, you know, I tried to capture some of the questions you had. And so if there's any more that, you know, I'm certainly here to answer anything.
Sure. Well, so I know the one thing Chris had mentioned was, or Mr. Tillman had mentioned, is about the driveways. So, and so I thought we had, you know, maybe it was after you presented this plan here, but I thought we were not going to allow front-loaded townhomes in the community village. So, but that might be added since you laid out your plan here. So I don't know what the commission thinks about that.
Yeah, to be fair, that is something that I think we went back to trying to be stringent about that long after this originally came before us, and so I don't know.
But that would only apply to the three homes in a row, not the 2 homes in a row, I believe.
Yeah, and the other thing is that there's no, they don't back up to another set of houses, you know what I mean? Everything is back up to either open space or adjacent property. So, you know, alleys are not exactly a.
What is going through your driveways? You have 2 different figures here. One says 15, the other says 18.
The actual setback we're showing is a 15-foot
To
setback.
the sidewalk.
To the sidewalk, a 15-foot setback.
There's no way a car can be there. Cars are bigger than that.
Well,
So you're gonna be blocking the driveway. You're blocking the sidewalk.
the setback we have proposed is 15 feet. There's steps in these houses. So one could be a little closer to the sidewalk than the other as a step, about 2 feet. And we don't site the houses right on a setback line. We try to give about a foot clearance. And again, if you look at some of the vehicles in the retirement communities today,
Yeah, I just did that Saturday. I
Yeah.
counted 17 out Carol Vista. That was over the sidewalk. So you're just building in a problem you're gonna have for safety.
and again, I mean, and that's 17 out of 400 and some units.
Does that make that right?
No, but there's people that are gonna park there and not use their garage, is my point. It's just gonna happen. You could sit there and put the thing 20 feet and still, people can still impede on a sidewalk just because they don't pull all the way up to the garage door, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why it should be 30.
But, yeah,
Okay,
well,
No way to do that in this space.
no, and the same way with the streets. I mean, we can't really squeeze another 2 feet of street width without affecting the setback from the rear, right? I mean, can we get any more width on the street other than the 25, 26 feet that we have? That's something
looking for.
I'd like to see a 28 or 30-foot wide street.
If you're going to allow parking.
Well, even without, just to be able to get to pass somebody on the street. And even though it is going to be basically a dead-end street, I mean, it's, you know, I'm satisfied or pleased that it's going to be senior retirement, especially since schools understand it's not going to be a retirement development anymore, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
So I really think we need something like this in town. And usually when you get to people our age, you don't have that much traffic. So, but if we could get a little bit wider street,
We originally put that 2 foot on each side for the mailbox, but if you don't do mailboxes and have a community mailbox.
is that what you're having, a community mailbox?
You have to
gain
nowadays.
2 foot, Yeah,
That's a requirement now from the postal service.
Okay.
Wherever possible, we need to do gang mailboxes.
so you gain 4 foot that way.
Yeah. So if you could gain some on the street width, I think that would be, affect a
those-
couple of issues.
Yeah.
And
For the preliminary site plan, I mean, I think we're kind of jumping ahead to give you things that we're looking to see on the preliminary plan.
Well, when it comes to
Do we need to do this for the concept?
the preliminary plan in Taneytown is a very detailed plan.
Right.
And then the final is adding some more details and taking it to the next level. So knowing what the street widths, I mean, it would be nice to get that decision made. You know, because like, again, conceptually, we're here. I mean, we are well into the final design of the final site plan when they decided to make it. So, I mean, I'd have to make the adjustment. And I'm not, you know, and again, if, you know, when we talk about a 28-foot road and some of it's for emergency services, I mean, if we added, if you add 2 feet of paving, that's running up to 28.8 feet, which is almost 29 feet. Your parallel parking on one side, that leaves basically, a parallel parking space is 8 feet by 25. And in that case, you know, you got basically 20 feet to do that. Now, that's not solving Mr. Myers' point when he was mentioning, well, if you have a fire and the ambulance has to get by, you know, because I'm not going to, as if it happens at the same time, and I understand, but ultimately we'll have a second means for emergency services. Yeah, so anyway, I did, you know, it's
okay, well, that's something we just want to make sure we bring stuff out so you have a chance to,
the decision on the road width would be nice to know so we can move forward, because everything's, storm drains are, you know, based on that. Calculations are based on impervious area and so on. So that would be helpful. That's probably the most important.
When you add 2 feet of road width, that affects all the stormwater management designs, the sizing of the ponds, all that. There's a lot of effects.
It's
to that.
adjustments we'll have to make.
Daryl or Jim, you any comments on, if we had an option on the street width, what we would want to set?
I have the, I guess, probably unpopular view of narrow streets and reducing the stormwater management and slowing speeds as being benefits. I understand from an emergency services standpoint, you know, that just because CLSI might model getting a particular piece of fire apparatus around a corner or through an intersection doesn't necessarily mean that every operator is going to be able to do that on a narrow street. So I acknowledge that. But, you know, I mean, 26 feet, 8 inches wide, you know, leaves you 2 9-foot travel lanes with a parked car. You know, that's tight. It's doable, but it's tight. So it's, but again, they are going to be private streets. So, and I don't know if the design would lend itself to any kind of, you know, and again, it's still more impervious surface, but, you know, instead of on-street parking, is there any opportunity to provide a small overflow parking lot in lieu of that? It might end up being the same amount of impervious as widening the street, though.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
But,
So we go,
so, yeah.
Can I, one other question?
is it related to streets? Because let's get the street issue
Okay, no,
squared
we'll stay
away.
on that. We'll stay on that.
Just for your information, as far as parking in Community Village goes, oh, gosh, I just had it here a minute ago. The Community Village does treat retirement dwellings, as Mr. Hackett said, differently than other types. So for example, when you look at the table of yard and bulk requirements that's at the back of the code for the zoning chapter, it leaves retirement dwellings subject to applicable provisions under site plan review approval. So it pretty much gives you guys the latitude on retirement dwellings. And that's essentially how we do Carol Vista. But for parking, find it again. It's two on-site spaces for a retirement dwelling, and no off-site spaces are required for retirement dwellings. Yeah.
I mean, I do kind of agree with Jim about about width of the streets and speeds, although this being a dead end is not nearly the issue. If this were a through street.
Okay, so you're saying 28, what?
Yep.
What was that?
So, yes, so I would say the 28 would be reasonable because it's a private road, 8 foot for parking on one side, and 20 foot then would be what the NFPA code would recommend as a street width. So 28 would seem like it would be reasonable for a private drive. Over.
Now,
So keeping that in mind, if we allow the 28-foot wide, does that mean we going to sacrifice the space in the back of the house, the setback? So if somebody wants to put a deck on or something, we're going to have to come in and ask for a waiver? Or do you have enough space or allocated for that already?
Here's the thing. I mean, I only set the property line, the front property line at the back of sidewalk to keep the sidewalks owned by the homeowners association, because they're the ones going to maintain them, and whether they crack up or whatever, they're going to push the snow, they're doing all the snow removal and everything. That line can be wherever to make the setback work, if we go a little wider with the road. The clarification with the road, I think, is the 28 feet, you know, in Taneytown, you use the rolled curb, so people, you know, when they park, they pull right up, and it's in the gutter pan, whatever, it's just where you park. You pull all the way over, you don't just, you might be slightly in the concrete or whatever, you might pull off on the curb. The question I have is can it be, instead of 24 feet of paving and the curb, can it be the 26 feet, getting us to being part of the roadway width? So I'm only adding a foot to each side. Is that acceptable?
You're gonna have a foot of grass. Is that-
Be about, what is 28.9 feet or so, or 8 feet, something like that.
So 26 feet of blacktop and then a foot of gutter pan being counted as the travel or the
Correct.
parking lane or
Yes,
travel
it's
lane.
parking, yes.
Okay.
And still gives you that 20 feet.
Okay. You understand what he's saying, Mr. Myers?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And,
right.
and if I may, could I ask the commission actually do that as some sort of like approval, like get a motion on that aspect of it, just so it's on record, and then later on at the preliminary final stage, where I'm sitting there going, well, I want them 30 feet or whatever. Would that be okay to do?
I don't think it's necessary because what we state is recorded here.
Okay.
As we,
I'm okay with
all our
that.
comments are recorded.
Okay.
Assuming a motion to grant concept subdivision approval is made, perhaps it could be made contingent on the
There you go.
street detail being modified to show a 28-foot street.
Okay.
Okay.
That way it'll be part of the motion, it'll be in the minutes, easy to go back and
If and
refer
when
to.
we get to a motion, we'll include that in a motion.
so, but let me ask you this, is that necessary on the cul-de-sac and the D-ring, or are we only talking about that on the main line?
I think all the way through.
Okay,
Yeah.
wanted to be clear.
All the way through, all the streets. Cul-de-sacs. Okay, and then you said you had another
Yeah, I have
question?
one other question. We're talking about sidewalks. Two things, and again, you know, worried about setbacks, but you've got, the driveways are 16 by 14, did you say, or it's 18?
The driveways they'll be basically, the garage doors 16 feet wide, so they're probably going to be 18 or 20 feet wide, the pads.
Okay. By 18,
to whatever gets you to the front of the house. You know, the pad will be, in certain cases, probably from the back of sidewalk to, could be 16 feet, and then it could jog into another house and be
I can see that.
18 feet.
Okay.
So do we want to set a minimum size of those parking pads so that they will accommodate a vehicle?
Yeah. Say it again.
You want to set a minimum size to the parking pads so that they will accommodate a vehicle? In terms
That's kind of contrary to the community village
Yeah.
aesthetic, that I understand the argument about people blocking the sidewalk, but some of you might recall that we went from a 25-foot setback to a 35-foot setback, and I believe part of the discussion leading to that was so that there'd be more room to park vehicles in driveways without blocking the sidewalks. But even with 35-foot setbacks in
Somebody's
most of
still
our
gonna
town,
do it.
it's still, I mean,
But at
and
least
having,
if you give them at least 18 feet, which is a standard
Right.
parking space,
Right.
they can at least try.
yeah, let me see, just for
Okay.
community village here.
All right.
Again.
Brown, you have anything?
Well, I do have one other question I did want to raise. Is this, the out parcel that's over here in the front, is that still intended to be a commercial,
Zone commercial.
zone commercial?
Yes, it
and
is.
The intent is down the line, hope for that to.
Correct.
What I would ask then is that there be some kind of pathway leading from these houses to that some kind of sidewalk path that comes back through here or something, some way that the residents can walk to, without having to walk out onto Route 140 where there are no sidewalks to get to it. So that's just
And back when we had the suite, was that it?
yes, sir. I'm done.
When we did the site plan approval, wasn't there some question about the entrance coming in, about the dividing going in from the state highway? Was there a question or concern from state highway regarding that? Anybody recall that? Chris, you recall anything on that?
Because I wasn't, when this was approved in March of March of this year, right?
Okay, so
I was
state-
not on then, but, I don't know if the state has any issue about the median divided entrance. They may or may not, I don't know.
We show the bifurcated entrance.
Yeah, okay.
And normally they allow. They normally have a width that they don't want to go too wide. If it goes too wide, it's perceived to have like two accesses. And people might turn down the wrong way. So they try to make them about 10, 12 feet.
Okay,
And that we try to stick to that.
All right.
you guys,
One,
all-
and can I read one more point? One of the things that, and I've had a lot of discussion with Daryl over this, and of course, we're in the middle of trying to deal with Mountain Branch and possible access across the FlowServe property, and where that might come out onto 140 and how that impacts where this entrance is. Because if we put this entrance too close to where that wants to be, the state isn't going to allow it. So I don't want to close out what may have to happen over here by what we've done here. So I'm not sure what that process is to try to include that, but we definitely, when it gets to final plans, we need to have that thought covered.
Correct.
well, we get comments from state highway somewhere along the line here, so that'd be covered.
Yes.
The comment,
I just, as long as
that'd be
we're
covered on the next phase,
thinking out ahead.
Yes.
no problem.
If I
All
could,
right.
just from the code as far as driveways and garages, where the commission allows a driveway and the front-loaded garage, the garage is to be accessed from the front. The front of the garage facing the street shall either be set back farther than the front wall of the dwelling, or, in the alternative, set forward of the front wall of the dwelling. If the attached garage is set forward of the front wall of the dwelling, the front face of the garage shall be set at the minimum build-to line so as to ensure parking of motor vehicles in the garage by limiting the distance between the front lot line and the face of the garage. So Community Village is trying to eliminate cars parked
Okay,
in front of the houses, is kind of the design aesthetic of it. So I would advise against making the driveways longer for the intent
we'd
of
be
being
violating
able
our
to
own
park
code.
there.
Right, okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hackett, don't go too far. Is there any comments from the floor? Please come to the podium and state your name.
Jim Thomas on Deal Road. I think probably, Jim, that might be a question for you. So my experience with the community village, looking back through the town's history, is often granting the builder increased density with really no expectations on the development side and what the town sort of receives from a design aesthetic. So that was true at Mead's Crossing, and I'm not sure other developments happens the same way. So my question in general is, if this increased density is granted, what are the trades that developer receives back to the town to allow that increased density? I think you were addressing this a bit, and whether that's driveways, alleys, all the things that are part of that equation when the density increase is granted. So I just haven't heard that in discussion so much of what is that? What are we asking them to do based on this increased density question?
Mr. Hackett, would you like to answer that? I'd like to make one comment on that regardless. I think one advantage to us, it gives us another development for senior citizens, a retirement development. And that's kind of what I'm looking at as one advantage.
This is, Jim, this is more from a design standpoint. Not so much like there are definitely positive things about the context of the use, and this is more very specifically about the use of community planning like this to enhance the aesthetic and the sense of community within that community that's being built in a very specific way. Again, lots of examples that you all talked about, but not so much implemented.
Okay, Mr. Hackett?
We will be doing an amenity, like gazebo and some areas for community around and pathways. And again, what it is, it's a 50-unit project, so it's a small project. It's not one where you can have a fancy clubhouse and pool. There's just not enough people to support it. You know, when you're looking at, obviously, Carol Vista, and that's millions of dollars in amenities. You got 450 units to, you know, with fees to cover, you know, that kind of thing, the maintenance and everything else associated. We still want to create a lifestyle that's quality of life where everything's maintenance free, that kind of thing for exterior and all that, and have a place to go with the community. And then, of course, you know, and again, just like Mr. Tillman said, that we can provide a sidewalk to that future commercial area. That stuff will come. The commercial areas will come to the town, but the commercial areas, obviously, demographic studies need rooftops in order for people to come to the town, you know, as far as businesses. So, you know, we'll be, I'm sure that my client will be happy to pay for a sidewalk to get back there. And so, and I like spending other people's money, so it's okay.
One last code
We all
note.
do that well.
And again, I think Mr. Hackett may have mentioned this, that the
Jim, is your mic on?
the standard density table does not apply to community villages composed entirely of retirement dwellings. There's a vehicle that parks a couple doors up that the alarm goes off.
No. Anything from the county? Okay. All right. At this point, oh, you had a question? Okay.
My name is Debbie Frazier. I don't have any concept plan to look at, so I don't know what is planned here. But I do live right across the road from where this is all supposed to happen. So I have several concerns. And one of them, Mr. Myers addressed earlier about fire safety and so on and so forth. And just one day last week, we had an ambulance call at our neighbors. All said and done, it ended up being 2 ambulances, a rescue truck, and 5 police cars. And you talk about chaos on 140, it was there. So I don't know if that's something to consider, if you have more than 2 or 3 emergency vehicles in that development, how that's gonna work out. And I wanted to ask how far back into that wooded area is this going to go? And how far off of the main road is it going to be,
What's going to be?
the development?
It's going to be, there's houses that will come basically all the way up to the main road,
Okay,
pretty much, 50 to 100 feet in, that kind of thing.
okay,
Oh, except for the general business area, it's going to be in front.
The general business area is off to the left-hand side, so there's gonna be an entrance road going back, and then for right now, that's just gonna be open space. It's zone business, so part of the front. That goes back, I would say, a couple 100 feet. That puts the houses back off the road.
okay,
But eventually, there'll be a commercial use there, most likely.
okay, on the Emmitsburg side.
Yes.
Thank you.
Marty, looks like you're about a good 150 feet from 140 on these. On your map, that half inch is, or an inch is a 50 feet.
Any other comments? Okay, at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion. Please state what the motion's for, and that also, if it's on the positive side, that it includes the street and
Sidewalk
sidewalk.
to the commercial.
Sidewalk to the commercial, right. So I'm looking for a motion. All right, to move it on, I'll make a motion for approval of the subdivision of concept plan with the conditions on the street and the sidewalk. Is there a second?
Just to be
Is there any way
clear,
to move forward?
the motion is to approve the concept plan with minimum 28-foot paved street width.
Was that a second?
I will second that.
A second by Mr. Tillman. Okay, so it looks like it's 2-4, 1 against. That makes me,
Yeah.
Mr. Mars against, 2 against, 2-4. That leaves it up to me. And I guess I'll have to go for approval, because that's the only way to move forward. So the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You got that in the records, Darrell or Jim?
I will. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda would be the ordinance and agreements for review. Ordinance 09-2023, backyard chickens. And that's for discussion and recommendation to the city council.
As you're aware, Mr. Chairman, there was certainly has been substantial discussion regarding these ordinances, or this ordinance. I took the concerns that we had from the last meeting to council. I believe they've all been incorporated into this current ordinance. So we bring it back for consensus approval of the council, of the commission.
It's not really approval, it's a recommendation.
Yeah, consensus for recommendation, I think is the action.
Give me a second to get my papers organized again here.
Jim, looks like this, Jim.
I made notes on mine. But go ahead, feel free to discuss.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to start.
Okay, Mr. Myers, go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, yep. I'm looking at the letters A through L there. So in letter C, we talk about the minimum size of the chicken run there, right? Is that what we called that? The run. So that is a minimum size. So technically that means if I fence my entire yard, my chickens could run my entire yard, correct? That's what we're saying, right?
You're right. We said a minimum, but no maximum.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that's bad. I just wanted to make sure everybody else was seeing the same.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that as we go.
Right. When we talk about the run, it's considered to be enclosed And maybe that needs some clarification as to having a top of some sort as well, so that it, you know, is clear that it's more than just a fence.
Yeah, the last line of section C there says chickens must be confined within coops and runs. So that to me defines that, you know, it has to have a roof of some kind because otherwise they can't be confined.
Okay, so yes, I wasn't reading it that way. So the coop I would assumed would have had a roof on it, but the run I would not have assumed it had a roof on it.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't, that really doesn't answer your question on the max.
Correct. Mhm. Well, if it needs to have a roof, not many people are going to put a roof over their entire yard.
Right.
So,
If you want to leave that up to common sense, that's okay.
yeah, but I guess I haven't seen a whole lot of chicken coops that had a roof over the entire run area, or I should say a chicken runs with a roof over it. Usually it's,
Just
you know,
a
it
coop.
has a building in the coop, and then there's an open area that's usually fenced in.
Yeah,
And-
out
yeah.
on Angel Road, there's a guy who has a run, if you're headed out Angel Road on the left-hand side at the top of the knoll. And that's like, to me, that's the quintessential what you would want. He's got a nice little shed. He's got a fully enclosed thing. It's about 6 feet tall. It's tall enough, it looks like a person could walk in there. And it's got a full roof over it, and now for the winter, he has it wrapped mostly in plastic. So, there's somebody who's doing it right now. He's not within city limits, but there's somebody who's doing it right and would be a model for, what we would want to do.
And I don't know that the top of the chicken run needs to be a waterproof roof. It could be chicken wire or something like that, but,
Right.
you know, that it
Trying to
just
keep
needs
the
to be
foxes and the
able to
hawks
keep
away.
the chickens in
Yeah,
it.
and the hawks, right. I mean, to me, you would want to have that anyway, but otherwise the hawks would be taking your chickens away.
Yeah. Yep. I think it would be good. I think if we clarified that it had to be have a roof over it, then I think there'd be a lot less chance you're going to have the entire yard full of chickens. So,
Is that all you had?
well, I guess no, it's not. So for letter F, I guess this might be Mr. Wheatrip's comment there. So we were talking about the coops and runs must be minimum feet of 20 feet from any dwelling. And so does that mean my actual house? So if I have it on my property, I have to be 20 feet from my house. So I can't have it underneath my deck or anything. Is that
I would say,
Is it the
based
intent?
on this, I'd say 20 feet from any
Any dwelling.
dwelling.
Okay.
So if we're 10 feet from property line, you got to be, and the neighbor's building is next to the property line, that's not going to
Yep.
give you 20 feet.
Yep.
So you need to be 20 feet.
Okay. Yep. And I'm good with that, I think.
Okay, before you move, while we're on that same area, how do you handle a corner lot?
I think we said that the coops and runs are considered an accessory structure, so whatever corner lots have to say about accessory structures would apply here. So like a shed. So, you know, you would have that additional setback from the second street.
Okay,
Right.
any other comments?
The last one was letter I, so I just needed somebody to help explain that to me there. So does that mean I can sell eggs or I can't sell eggs?
Personal activities such as,
Not.
but limited to selling
It
eggs.
should say, but not limited to.
It says prohibited, so.
Yeah, it's prohibited.
So I can't sell eggs.
You cannot
Okay.
sell it.
Can't sell eggs, prohibited.
But can I have other commercial activities like selling chickens? I was just trying to figure it out. That's all.
Right.
No, basically what it says, commercial activities is prohibited.
Yes.
Okay.
You read it as though the
Right.
comma weren't there.
So yeah. So
But
So
not
I would
limited to
say-
selling eggs.
Not limited, should say
Right,
not
and
limited to.
not should be
so
in
I
there.
would have said commercial activities are prohibitive. This includes selling or not. You can't sell eggs or this includes not. Well, yeah.
We'll correct that.
Yeah.
Dan, are you confusing yourself?
And
Yeah. I'm confusing myself. But
All right.
Um, uh, Yeah, and I guess the only other major concern I have, maybe it's not a major concern, is I really don't have a problem with my neighbor having chickens. I don't think. I am not familiar enough to say whether there's a odor that's going to be attached to a chicken coop or not. But I have dogs in my neighborhood that make more noise than I care, and I can smell them sometimes when I'm walking down the street. So they're just a couple concerns I have with chickens. But other than that, I think I'm okay with the clarifications we discussed there. Over.
I would like to see some type of registry set up that they would have to come and renew it maybe every 2 years, set some type of limit on it. So that if I have chickens and I sell my property, and just because I have the coop and everything, never who's buying it, think they can come in and do it. Or somebody calls and says, there's chickens at blank, blank address, that somebody here can look at address up and see that it's recorded somewhere.
Recorded that they have a flock.
That they have a flock, and they went through the 101 class or whatever it is set up by the Department of Agriculture.
So Jim, would that mean that if I every 3 years I have to recertify that I'm allowed to have chickens, or only when you change?
I would like to see something like that, even if it just matters to come to City Hall and get a certificate or whatever. Actually, we don't have any registry set up for anything, do we?
Well, so our IT guru, Dan, just messed around for a little bit of time and sort of set up the ability to have a registry like that. Mr. Park, you have to realize that we're not a 10-man gang here, 10-person gang. So, I mean, we can make this as complex as possible, or we can just, we have to just sort of, I think a balance has to be found. Just because someone said, hey, we need to, let's allow chickens. Let's not allow chickens. And what we have to realize is, like, what did you send me over the weekend? A picture of?
Right.
A chicken on.
Chicken on the sidewalk.
Yeah, on York Street.
Yeah.
So let's call that a fluke and it'll never happen again. Or someone goes and spends $10 and buys a few chickens, and they don't turn out to be as soft and cuddly and loving as a kitten or a puppy. We're not ingrained as human beings to be raising certain animals as we are a chicken or a cat or a puppy. And then what happens is, my concern is also, what do you do with those? I mean, 2 months into it, when it's 10 degrees out, tonight you're going out and you're spending a half hour cleaning out your chicken coop, or are you? And then the neighbor calls because it smells, because, the weather's been bad, Daryl. That type of thing. It's, since this has been talked about, there's been no stopping to think about it, what are the long-term ramifications other than having chickens, which are very expensive, a dozen eggs in your refrigerator, quite frankly. And it can also be laborious to enforcement here in the city. So the people that already have chickens should have already had their flocks registered with Department of Agriculture. That's huge. So what they're not worried about what rules we have. They want the flocks registered because, God forbid, there's an illness. And when it was introduced to the council all those weeks ago, when the articles in the Carroll County Times, there's an outbreak in Maryland of a chicken flu. So what the agriculture worried about is, they want to know before you even get chickens, you're thinking about getting chickens, register your flock, or register the fact that you may have birds there. They want that to happen before anything happens, because in the event that there is an outbreak, they're going to pepper you with communication just in case. So these are things that they're real. I mean, bird flu is not something that's never happened. It happened. I mean, it's not first page, awesome reading in the newspaper, but it's out there. So, yeah, I ran over. I just wanted to discuss the fact that.
As long as, I mean, when we would be maintaining a running list of who had permits and who had, who had been granted permission. So we would have that information somewhere where it would be accessible.
Yes,
Be a
we would be
database
issuing,
probably set
we
up
would be
for it.
issuing a zoning certificate, most likely, just like we would for a shed or a fence or a new house. So, we can always query that database to find out if,
Right.
a certain address,
Right, so if
has
the
gone
Department of
through the
Agriculture came to
process.
us and said, hey, do you know how many chicken flocks you have in your town?
Right.
We would be able to answer
We
that
could-
question for them.
We could query the system and, run a report on that.
So I also asked the Department of Agriculture, can we have your list of registered flocks?
And that would be a good thing to do
Indeed, right?
to check the two, right?
It'd be neat, but so far I've been told they can't do that.
They can't give you,
It's private information.
So we're okay on setting up some type of registry?
Right. But the idea of having to come back in periodically would switch it from being a zoning
I'm
issue
not
to more of a
necessarily in favor of
licensing
that.
issue. And that hasn't been, the ordinance doesn't do that. So it will be a one-time thing. You come in, you show where your coop and run are gonna be. It meets all the setbacks. You've taken the chicken class. You've registered the flock with the Department of Agriculture. Your coop's gonna be 20 feet from your house, 10 feet from the property line, and you get a zoning certificate. And then, when you call and say, hey, I've installed my coop, Daryl goes out, takes a look, make sure it's where it's supposed to be. And then hopefully we never have to interact with them again because everything goes smoothly.
in the world of headaches that this gives us, that suddenly just brought another one to mind, is you have someone who is renting a property, right? Has their chickens, has their registered chicken flock, whatever. For whatever reason, that lease ends and those people move out and they leave their chickens. And then the next person coming in is not a registered chicken owner. And we have no way of going back to check on, now who that current resident is and whether or not they've taken the chicken class.
And that could happen with an owner occupied as well because,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
They-
but I
they-
mean, but it
right,
would be more prevalent in a rental situation, but yes.
right. And hopefully in that situation, since the owner would sign off on the actual zoning application.
The property owner would have to.
Property owner would,
okay.
yes.
So they would know.
I would imagine they would probably, take care of clearing that off the property before the next tenant, but you never know.
Okay. That pretty much covers what I had in mind. So any comments from the floor? Then can we send a recommendation?
Oh, Harry.
I'll come talk about chickens for a second. Harry Mead, Baumgartner Avenue. My biggest question all this is why? You're creating a massive bureaucracy around chickens. It's 2 or 3, I don't have it in front of me, there's 2 or 3 government touches now. There's time to go out and check the buildings and such. I was sitting in the back and I was like, okay, so are we regulating chicken braces? Are we regulating assault chickens? It seems like this is like getting more convoluted than Maryland's gun laws almost on chickens. And it's really, I've said it at another one of these, it really seems like it's a solution searching for a problem. And it seems like it could be taken care of a lot easier than creating all of this over a situation that's not that prevalent.
Well, I think they're, as described by the fact we have chickens walking down the street on York Street, it's, maybe a little bit more prevalent than you might think. But from my standpoint, from the council standpoint, the determination from our side is that we kind of have tacitly allowed chickens. And the problem with that is then, okay, we've tacitly allowed this guy over here to have a chicken. This guy over here wants a cow. We tell him no. He says, yeah, but that guy has chickens. How do you tell me no? And you say it's a solution in search of a problem, but, to me, it's a solution trying to offset a larger problem later.
Right. we're trying to address the situation, no problem.
But the others, to Harry's point there is, if you enforce the current ordinance, then you won't
We
have
don't
this
have a
problem
problem.
either.
Right.
Right.
Also true, so you're either enforcing a new ordinance or you're enforcing the current ordinance, but either way, we're having to go out and enforce an ordinance. And so the question to the council was, do you want to allow chickens or not want to allow chickens? And the consensus of council was that they wanted to allow chickens. So if you're going to allow chickens, then you need to regulate it, because if you don't, you're going to end up in trouble somewhere down the line.
Okay, it just, like I said, I'm just listening to this snowball and become this massive, it seems, thing for this, when it doesn't seem like it needs to be this involved.
All right, thank you. All right,
Thank you, Harry.
so what is the request of the city council to us?
It's your opportunity to make a recommendation or modifications, a recommendation to move forward with the ordinance, to oppose the ordinance, to support it with amendments like adding the word "but"
Okay.
to not, but not limited to,
That's my
or the word
understanding.
"not,"
of
I
it.
guess.
So I'll entertain a recommendation that we can present to the city council. Who would like to please state it clearly.
And there's not an obligation to formally comment
Right.
either. You can also
Right.
just
It's a recommendation, it's our recommendation to the city council.
I will leave that to you gentlemen, being a councilman, so I'll leave that to you gentlemen to recommend to us.
All right. Mr. Brown, Mr. Myers, someone?
I guess I'll move to move forward with this proposal, with the stipulations of the wording, verbiage that we spoke of earlier.
The top one, C, right?
And, we approve the ordinance that is written, other than this slight variations in wording that we all already addressed.
All right. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? So I guess what you're saying is you're in favor of the ordinance of having chickens with the recommendations as presented to us.
Correct.
Okay.
We're going to favorable approval, a favorable recommendation, rather.
Favorable recommendation.
Favorable recommendation.
Right, what, favorable recommendation? Okay.
All right. Any more discussion on it? All right. Roll call vote. Tillman?
Am I supposed to vote on matters that are going to come back to me at council?
Yeah, you can, because you're a member of this body as well.
At this point in time, yes.
I recommend that we recommend this for approval to council.
Mr. Brown?
I concur with that.
Yes,
Mr. Garner?
yes.
Mr. Myers, I see a thumb up. I really don't need to vote, but my thumbs are down. I don't think we need another ordinance to have somebody to have to go, please. So it looked like the motion did pass as a recommendation for it. I just want to state, I like chickens. I love to hear the chickens cackle. I love to hear the rooster, but I hate to hear dogs barking all the time. So, but that is covered. We move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Darrell, you want to move on to your report?
Sure. So some certain members of the commission went out to the FP Duffy site to check out that new 18,000 square foot building and that monstrous baler. And we got to see a bunch of other stuff that they recycle right here in town. You know, I've been in town for a long time and never knew they were here until 2 years ago. And I was very surprised by it. But then again, they're a quiet partner within the city. Stuff is brought into their site, they sell it out of town, it goes out to different parts of the country and overseas. It's pretty neat. So that was pretty nice of them to let us do that. So, Mr. Chairman, there's not a whole lot of other things ever following as you were. Memorial Park expansion will probably be in front of us hopefully next month. We have already switched Garnet Ridge from an active site plan to an active subdivision scenario. And other than that, there's a lot going on. FP storage today is all but, they have most of what they need to do from an engineering standpoint. There is a sewer pipe that's in the wrong place in the whole world, and it happens to be right, and they're not even connecting to water or sewage. But it's there, they have to deal with it, so it's been a rather, little bit of a challenge. But CDM Smith is working with them to see what we can get passed on that. There has been a little bit of progress on the tannery barn. You know, they've emailed me out of the blue, say, hey, what's going on? So we're waiting to finalize some agreements with some of the plantings that they have offered for the stormwater remediation and filtering, that type of thing. Other than that, that is all I have.
Okay, where do we stand on 20 View or 20 Drive, whatever that is out there? At subdividing those two lots. or
Okay.
One lot into two. Where we stand on that?
Well, so there's a little bit of a challenge with the R7500 zoning into both, it's two front yards on a corner lot. And what's different out there is if you haven't ridden around there, please do. Because I can't articulate here how many different changes there are for the different setbacks there. It's a 50, maybe a 60s development, if you will. There's a lot of different front yard, like Mr. Naylor's front lawn. That's probably 22 feet. You go around the corner, 18, 15 feet. There are very few in the R7500 zoned area, 35-foot setbacks. This lot is new, so it would fall more under the R75 than something that was pre-code. So they are most likely looking to see if they can't get a variance for the front yard setback on the Bob Warner Road side. Again, we're working on that. Again, I had no information on that because we're needing some more information to make that decision.
How many houses front on that street?
How many houses front on?
Just like, you're talking about 10, 8? I mean, I know it's not a
Yeah,
long street.
10-ish. I mean, yeah.
Can we just get an average of what the setbacks are and just say, okay, here's the average setback of houses on this street, match this?
Yeah, so that will really be a function of the Board of Appeals. But yeah, having that information would be helpful when it's presented to you guys. Yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's good
Trying to
information.
go King Solomon on
It
it.
does vary a lot. A lot.
Okay. Anything new on the possibility of the hardware store?
No.
Okay.
the same story, I think, with the,
Beezer property.
yeah, I know, with the, on the other side of the road.
Fees are south.
Yes.
My understanding is that that may have been withdrawn. I haven't seen a letter from the owner of that
That would
site.
be unfortunate.
Owner of that project, sorry.
I said that would be unfortunate.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Legal update.
We have no
What do we
attorney.
got?
We have
Who's representing us?
no one at this time. We have no, right now we are unrepresented.
Okay. County update, Tiffany? Good evening.
Okay, so for the water sewer master plan, the triennial update just happened. So we have begun accepting applications for the spring amendment, and please have those to us by February. The transportation master plan was approved by the Planning Commission on November 14th, and the economic development and land use study was reviewed and introduced and reviewed on the 14th as well. They're going back to the Planning Commission on the 29th, this Wednesday, for any comments or questions that the Planning Commission has about the study. And then they'll take the study to the commissioners on the 21st. So the transportation master plan and the economic development and land use study are both steps in our moving forward to our comprehensive plan, to the county's comprehensive plan. And so the third one in that is the housing study. And the housing study just got approved for the bid for the housing study on the 2nd of November. And that right now is just the contracts are being worked out. And then when the housing study consultant, we meet with them and they start, we will be reaching out to the municipalities for input and direction, because a lot of the housing in the county is in the municipalities.
What's the
And
time frame on that, Tiffany?
a year. We're going to be looking at a year, and we'll be doing a lot of outreach. So we'll probably be working with the city about maybe when would be good out here, or where might be good out here in discussions, if that's going to be.
Because we're kind of trying to gear back up on our own comprehensive plan, so it'd be nice to tie the two together.
Exactly. And I think that's everything. I have. Any questions?
Comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I don't think there's any old business, any new business. Where are we staying with the comprehensive plan or the help we're gonna get? Did that go out for a quote yet?
Not yet, Jim. There's a lot to put together.
Okay,
So it's gonna take a little while.
Okay.
But I know the city manager has been working on it. If you have anything else you want to add.
Now, council was supportive of at least considering the idea. So we are going to put a request for qualifications out. I'm expecting probably in January maybe to be meeting with a couple firms. We'll advertise it on inexpensive places like our website and stuff, but we'll also send a request out to a couple of specific firms that have been suggested and get their qualifications and probably meet with a couple firms and then ask for full proposals from a couple firms. So, but if the price tag comes in, extraordinarily high, we may not have the support to move forward with it this year. So we'll have to see what it ends up being. But council did include $40,000 in the budget to get some assistance on some of the chapters, but this obviously is going to be much bigger than that.
but they're in favor of the,
But they're right. They gave us the go-ahead to
In favor
at least explore the idea.
Exploring the idea.
Right,
If we can
not
afford
not
it.
committing to funding it, but okay with putting some feelers out and getting that process started.
okay. All right, anything else?
No, sir. That was the only thing I was going to bring up was that same question, so.
Okay. Any comments or anything from the floor? Not? Why y'all looking at me? You're the furthest away. I wanted to make sure you got the email. All right. Normally in December, we do not have a meeting, but if something comes up, we'll have one 1st of January, give or take. You'll have to let us know.
But other than that, our next scheduled meeting will be the fourth Monday in January.
Yeah.
So Jim, how's that fit out for you all? So say, like, Memorial Park expansion will most likely be able to stand a next month meeting. So are we going to do one early January, making a date?
Not just for Memorial Park.
Okay.
Memorial Park is something that been on the agenda long enough that I don't think we need to have a special meeting just for approval on that.
Understand, but to finish, in case anything else comes in, I can contact you and you let me, is that?
Yep.
I just want to know what the process is.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm available anytime you need me.
Okay?
So as far as Mondays go, the first is, of course, the New Year's Day holiday. The 8th is actually the second Monday, so that would be the council meeting. So the council workshop's going to be on the 3rd. Meeting will be on the 8th, so those first 2 Mondays are kind of out, so we might need to
Right.
explore a non-Monday meeting.
If we need to.
If we need to,
If you
but
need to, just put it
Other
out,
than that, I think we ought to just wait until the next regular January meeting.
which would be the
unless-
29th.
Right. Unless there's something that becomes time critical. I don't know that there's anything in the Memorial Park expansion that would be that time critical. But if it is, if there's,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like lead time issues on any specialty items or anything like that that would require it, but
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Adjourn.
Brown,
in that motion.
second by Chris. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up, got it? Thank you. Thank you, guys. Chris, could I have those back, because I want to